Join us and unwind with a good book. Welcome to Relaxing Reads.
Hi, it's Deb in Halifax.
Hi, it's Simone in Vancouver.
Hey, it's Tanya in Edmonton.
Our latest read, 3 Holidays and a Wedding, is a team effort from authors Uzma Jalaluddin and Marissa Stapley. As strangers and seatmates, Maryam and Anna fly to Toronto over the holidays. Maryam to her sister's impromptu wedding, and Anna to meet her boyfriend's wealthy family for the first time. Neither expect that severe turbulence will scare them into confessing their deepest hopes and fears to one another. They end up being forced to delay those holiday plans thanks to a snowmageddon scenario and land at a quirky inn on the outskirts of Snow Falls, a picture-perfect town where, of course, a holiday romance could happen. But as Maryam and Anna start to feel the magic of Snow Falls and find love better than their deepest hopes, they just might realize there's no place they'd rather be for the holidays. So, ladies, there's romance, there's chaos, and there's so much more. But what else could you wish for traveling over the holidays?
Oh, I think that everybody at some point has had some sort of issue with holiday traveling, whether it's missed flights or missed luggage, or you don't end up getting to where you need to get to. And that's exactly what happens in this novel. You know, they're flying, Anna and Maryam are flying from Denver, and they're supposed to be going to Toronto, and they don't actually get there. They were supposed to go to Ottawa then, and all of a sudden they ended up in this little town called Snow Falls, and it is like the most idyllic setting ever. I mean, I think everybody can kind of, you know, Christmas is all about snow and all that kind of stuff, and in this place it's like, yeah, snowmageddon. There's like snow everywhere, and it's like I totally wanted to be in Snow Falls. Absolutely.
Just mountains and mountains of snow. Yeah, this book reads like a Hallmark movie, starting right from the beginning. You really get into it. The characters are lovely, both of them. At first, there's some hesitation because you're trying to figure out what they're like, but definitely a magical book. And I know we've read books from Marissa the last 2 years during this time of year. And so I was really excited when she told us she was working on a multi-faith novel. And it was interesting because just learning about the different traditions when it comes to even Ramadan and Hanukkah. I really like that touch in this book. And yeah, Snow Falls is just a magical place. And that's when snow is nice, when you can just, you don't have to go to work. You don't have to commute. You can just sit there and enjoy it and look at it. That's when I like snow.
Yeah, right.
I'm with you on that
felt
one, Simone.
all the feels and the snow as well. I am not an outdoor winter person, not like I used to be. But if it's snowing like it does in the Hallmark movies, like we imagine with this book, it feels quite perfect. And I have to say that this was one of my favorite reads. I was feeling absolutely everything. I love the multi-faith and multi-holiday idea, and I think it would be so wonderful to be able to experience each one of them as they were throughout the book. And there was something about these characters, these main characters, these 2 women that I really connected with. And I just felt like I want to be there. And it's not that I don't want to spend the holidays with my family, but if I was traveling like they were, and I ended up in a place like this, I think I would be okay with it.
You know, when it comes to traveling, you just have to be open, especially that time of year. And that's what I think one of the big things about this book was. They were just very open to the circumstances, to their surroundings, and just kind of being like, okay, when life gives you lemons, let's make lemonade. There was less of that frustration and anger that can come with when your plans are ruined. It was like, well, we should expect this kind of stuff to happen this time of year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, except Saima, like she was a lot. She was a lot.
She was a lot.
Obviously, she's supposed to be getting married in Toronto. So I think that, everybody else kind of went, okay, well, this is sort of what's happening. But she's a little spitfire, right? And she's like, go, go, go. And she's like, I'm getting married. Like,
Bridezilla.
In Toronto. She was sort of a little bit like that. But I sort of, like Deb, I was with you on, sort of the multi-faith. And I actually really loved learning about all of the customs and everything. And one of the favorite parts in this book is when, they realized that the marriage, was not going to be happening in Toronto. And they threw her a lovely party. And I don't know whether I'm going to get the name right. They threw her like a like a
Mendy party, yeah.
Yes, they threw her a party. And it was just like, I just love the fact that to me, it just seems so colorful and bright and happy. And I thought that was such a wonderful thing to do because, of course, she's the one who is sort of in a little bit of chaos. And and they did this wonderful thing for her. And I really love that.
Yeah. And I think it's, like the best of these three religions, or these holidays, all coming together and celebrating each other. And initially, these characters, Maryam and Anna, when they met on the flight, they were probably thinking, oh, we are the extreme opposites. There's no way that we could ever connect unless we were sitting or assigned these seats on this flight. And then, my gosh, as things unraveled, they had so much more in common, didn't they?
Yeah, they absolutely did. And by looks, you wouldn't have thought it because here's Anna in her Manolo Blahniks, right? These shoes, which I'm like,
all ready
my gosh.
for the snowstorm.
I know Simone loves the purses, and I'm like, I am all about shoes. And I'm like, oh my gosh, she's standing in the snow with those shoes. And then, Maryam, she self-describes herself in the book as Boreum, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like the older sister, the dutiful sister. She's got to do this and she's got to do that. And I kind of really like the arc that she went through, and it's sort of like, she kind of had self-discovery on her own, and she kind of changed things around going, you know what? I don't have to do all of this. Why am I taking on all this crap? Why am I doing this to myself? I'm making myself crazy. And she really does grow throughout the novel. And I just loved reading and watching her grow and kind of discovering herself and going, yeah, I'm a pharmacist, but I really love to write. I'm like, oh, look at you go. So I really loved reading her character.
I think for them, it was kind of that moment of pause, right? So first they're on the flight together. Things are, going crazy with the turbulence and things. And then you're opening up to a complete stranger, things you've never said to someone. And then when they got to snowfalls, for both of them, it was a time to pause and reflect. And I think in life, we're so rushed, we're so busy. We don't really take those moments to just be with our thoughts and be with ourselves as much as we need to. So I think for both of them, it was a moment of reflection. And this time of year, it's something you want to do is just have the holidays, have a break and be like, what am I doing with my life? Am I happy with my life? What are the changes I need to make? Because it's never too late to plan something exciting or new for yourself or for your future. So I think that was kind of the big message in this story is things just hum along and we bumble along and we go with life. But sometimes you need to just take a step back and think about what's happening in your life and make some changes.
And a different scene, I think, when you're traveling, and I love the airport. As long as I've got myself organized and I get there, and I don't mind being the person who's, several hours ahead of, when we're scheduled to be there, because I love to people watch and I imagine what might be happening in each relationship, each group of people. But I think when you're in a different scene, everybody's busy, everybody's got so much on the go, and sometimes you go through your daily routine without realizing that you're going through the motions, and sometimes because it is so busy, you don't have time to pause and really wonder, is this the way I should go? Is this the route that I should be taking? Or can I try it a little differently? But when you're traveling, you have the time to kind of look around and take in the sights and sounds. That's when I think a lot of us can feel like our true selves, and maybe when you get on the flight or you start the conversation when you're sitting and waiting to board, when you do spill for whatever reason with a complete stranger, I guess maybe thinking that you won't see them again. So what's to lose? I need to throw what's on my mind somewhere. So I'm just going to throw it in your lap, if that's okay with you, stranger.
Well, I think you're right, Deb. It's like you probably won't see this person again. And I think that's what gives us the freedom, is that there is no judgment. Like, they don't know us. Yeah. We don't know them. We can just sort of our deepest, because I think sometimes we talk to family and friends, sometimes with a filter, Like,
Yeah.
I don't, can I say this? I mean, it depends on the friend, and certainly with family, it can be very judgmental. And so, like, I'll tell you a little bit, but I'm not going to tell you everything because I don't want that judgment, And with strangers, it's like you can just gush. And, they might be able to give you a piece of advice, or they might be able to laugh or whatever. I think it's just that release of just letting, like, kind of bearing your soul and just, here you go.
Well,
I love that.
Isn't it like when so we're talking about them being seatmates, but it's the same could be said when you're on vacation. I feel like when you're on vacation, you're freer and you are less worried about what you wear or how you act or if you're consuming one too many beverages because you're just in that place where it is. Nobody knows me here. I can let loose. I don't have to be worried. Whereas you're right. Sometimes in those situations with friends and family, there might be that one person that you're like, are they judging me or how I'm behaving or how I'm acting? And you kind of worry. So I think that's the beauty of travel in general is just you're kind of free for those moments in time.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Deb, you talked about like you like to get to the airport early, and it's like my boyfriend is like he just shows up in the nick of time. So the last few times we traveled, I'm like seriously, dude. Like I said, you know what? My vacation starts as soon as I'm through security.
Yes.
So it's like I like to get through security, and then I like to sit there and I like to have a glass of wine, maybe look at some books, and I'm just like my vacation starts as soon as I'm cleared. And I'm like, so, we've been traveling like that because I hate being late for anything. And he's like, yeah, this is actually really nice. I'm like, hello.
Yeah, because the last thing you want is to be rushing to the gate or there's traffic. And then it's like one time I was with two friends and they were so late and it was so irritating. And it's like we got there and it was like we literally didn't even have time to grab like even a Starbucks before the plane. And I was like, I just want to just settle in.
You just want to... Yeah. And also, like, I loved Anna. I related to Anna. Poor Anna. She gets to the gate and the check-in, says, yeah, that's not going on the flight. Your bag. It's like, what do you mean it's not going to go on the flight? Well, it's too big. No, it's not. Yes, it is. Same thing happened to me going to Mexico. And it's like, I bought my luggage specifically with the specifications for international carry-on, right? And I'm like, did the cabin change all of a sudden? They would not, and I only packed one bag. I got it all in there for like a 10-day trip. They wouldn't let me put it on the plane, like in carry-on. And I'm like, you kidding me? I said, this is like an international coded, like, they're like, I'm sorry, it's not going to go on. And then I got on and I'm looking around. I'm like, oh, it totally would have fit.
Yeah,
totally
that happened to me as well,
Oh.
traveling internationally. And I did have a few extra things because the trip I was going to, there was going to be a surprise element. My cousin was celebrating her 50th birthday. And so I had some gifts, but I also had some decorations. And so my bag was a little... it was stuffed, but I took a few things out and it looked like everybody else's bag. And and they're like, that's not going to fit. I'm like, no, it's going to fit. It's going to fit. So then when they were asking for people to volunteer because they had too many, they needed to actually check. So I volunteer and I got up there and she's looking at me. She said, is that going to fit in there? Probably not. Anyway, it didn't fit. And she said, well, we're going to have to charge you for that. I'm like, but I volunteered.
I know.
I volunteered. Anyway, it wasn't like it was a lot of money, but that was my fear because I've not traveled with checked bags in such a long time. But I thought, oh, well, let's see what happens. And it landed with us. So I was happy and that was fine. But oh my
Well, it's
dear.
like we're all there, right? Like nobody wants to check baggage. Of course, Simone, you guys went on a huge trip. But, and it's like you just don't want to deal with the landing and finding the carousel and all that, right?
No.
Like you just want to go.
Even the big trips, like it's like we were all combining our stuff in all suitcases. It wasn't like one person has their own because I'm like, if one of them gets lost, we all still need options. So it was like mixing and matching all the stuff. When it came to, obviously, Anna's luggage didn't arrive. What did we think about her Josh Tannenbaum, Chase Taylor, this kind of Hollywood type actor rescuing her? There's moments he's carrying her through the snow. Yeah, that whole Hallmark vibe. But what was interesting was there were moments where she would find out stuff about him, but she didn't seem as bothered. You know, like Maryam was the one who was like, listen, you need to be bothered by this.
Yeah.
But she almost didn't seem as irritated about some of the stuff that he was doing, which was interesting.
Mm-hmm. Maybe she already in her mind with her relationship that was
With Nick.
With Nick. Oh, Nick. Oh, boy. I guess without realizing that she had already settled what was to come, that, part of her was, I'm just going to let this happen. And I don't know, maybe she's like some people, like myself sometimes as a single person, I end up flirting and allowing that to happen when you're traveling. I don't know that I would allow anybody to carry me if I needed to through the snow.
I love that. But I think I think in a way, like I do think that she was sort of preoccupied. At least some part of her brain was preoccupied with Nick, right? And I think that's maybe why she didn't let Josh it really affect her in so many ways, sort of like, is he dating his co-star? Is he not? Like, what is he doing? And I think because she always had like one foot in Toronto with his, really rich family and one foot in Snow Falls. And of course she goes through a change as well in terms of what she's going to do. It's a lot of fun to read. But I knew Nick like at the very beginning when he was leaving first and he kissed her as they were like leaving their apartment and he's like, oh, coffee breath. I'm like, you're done, buddy.
Yeah.
You are done. Yeah.
He didn't even care. Why aren't you here? Why haven't you made it? Where's your stuff?
Gosh.
What are you doing? Like, how about, how are you? Are you okay? I was like, when her cell phone died, I was like, this is the best thing that's happening for you.
Honestly. Yeah. The storm of the century arrives and everybody's flight, everybody's travel plans were affected, not just for those groups that we met in the book, but and here he is thinking that somehow she could get out of it and she could control what was happening.
I know.
Because it has to be perfect for his perfect family.
Well, too much pressure. I'm glad she's out of that. There was a moment at the end where I thought they might reconcile when she was like, oh, well, he's coming to get me. And when I was like, no, you can't. But
you can't.
I know. And then there was Maryam and Saif, the childhood crush that came to fruition. It was kind of cool that there were like two love stories going on. In most books, it's kind of like one. So you've got all these holidays going on. You got the love stories going on. And I didn't realize that happened in the year 2000 where everything was kind of happening at once. I was like, I never paid attention.
That.
Did you?
Yeah,
Okay.
I do. And also the big storm in Toronto and the fact that, the mayor at the time asked, for the Army's help. And I think, here's a big city asking for help from military members in, I think it was in PEI.
That's right.
So Toronto needs the help of the smallest province in the country. But so I guess it was loosely based on that. But I can't imagine. I mean, going through this story and living through this particular story, but actually at the time when it was happening, I don't know that I would have been okay or played along with it, unless there was some kind of a romance happening
that's the thing. When it comes to like how we each would have handled that scenario, like for me, I would have been the Sima in the beginning because I'm such a planner and I like to have things be a certain way, but I'm also very spontaneous. I think that's just me with like a Libra forever trying to find balance. Like it's always one or the other. So I think it would be like that whole like, life is ruined, this sucks, I'm not happy. And then I would just be like, well, it is what it is. So let's just now enjoy it.
Yeah.
One of my I think there's quite a few takeaways from this book. Of course, like Anna's dad, who has passed away prior to this book, he had lots of things, words of wisdom and sayings. And Dadu, who I absolutely loved, he's one of my favorite characters. He's like, he always has like these amazing things, and then things that he's saying, and then Sima and Maryam, they reconciled at the end because, of course, a whole bunch of stuff happens, and then they reconcile. The two sisters get to, reconcile, and they talk about their feelings and how they approach their lives and what Maryam wants out of her life. And I love that Lima said, well, it doesn't really, move to California and be with him. If it doesn't work out, then at least you tried. And I'm like, there's so much a part of this book is sort of like, well, just go and do it.
Go for it.
And just go for it. Because at least, I think for everybody in everything in life, if there's something that you really want, just go and try it. Because by taking one step in another direction, you are forcing your life to a bunch of stuff to start changing, right? Now, maybe it'll be great, maybe it won't. But if you don't take the step, you'll never know.
Exactly.
And then you just keep going and going and going.
Yeah.
And I really loved a bunch of this book where everybody's taking like these little mini steps. And yeah, who was like your guys' favorite character?
Oh, well, you said
Dadu.
Dadu?
Dadu,
Dadu.
or Mr. Dadu.
Yeah.
Mr. Dadu.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I would love to be stuck at the airport and meet up with him. I think it would just be so enriching, and there were so many takeaways from his loving soul. And I don't know. I think everybody's grandfather is what somebody referred to him as, and I think he was just so beautiful.
I want to be stuck with Josh Tannenbaum.
Oh, well, there is that too. Yeah,
Okay,
that would be okay.
John, yes. You're right. Yeah. I mean, I am like full on into Hallmark, and honestly, I have been into Hallmark movies since like November. So reading this book, I'm like, oh my gosh. So there's like a Hallmarky type of film being shot in this little town. There's snow. He's really hot, this guy. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I want to be Hannah. I want him to carry me like a fireman to the lodge.
But a perfect read for this time of year.
It
amazing.
really is. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And just like the Hallmark shows or similar shows, a lot of people might think, well, it's so predictable, it's so cheesy. But in the end, there are so many great, wonderful messages, and it's uplifting, and it makes you feel good, and it makes you believe that there is hope in so many areas of our life and those that we encounter. So I think, read more rom-coms, especially holiday rom-coms, and the world will be a much better place.
Exactly.
Exactly. Well said, Deb.
Well, thanks.
All right, I think it's time we speak with the authors of the book, Marissa and Uzma, and ask some of our questions and share our thoughts on this amazing novel. Loved the book. I know, Marissa, last year when you told us about this book, we were excited from the get-go because I feel like every November we read one of your holiday rom-coms. So this was so fun to get into this multi-faith novel. So I guess just leading us off, maybe both of you can share kind of where the idea came from.
Essentially, Marissa and I are both Toronto-based writers, and we both had a book coming out in 2021, and we were just kind of in touch talking about some movie options, and getting into into screenwriting and things like that. I told Marissa about this idea that I'd had to write a multi-faith holiday rom-com movie, and a couple of months later, she came back to me and said, "Why don't we turn it into a book instead?"
Yes, and Uzma gave it a little bit of thought because we always joke that she said to me, like, I need a few weeks to think about this. And one of the many things Uzma has taught me, because now when people ask me to do something, I take a minute instead of just saying yes. And so I waited for 2 weeks, and then she said yes. And I was so absolutely thrilled. And we had so much fun writing this book.
It seemed like that. I saw that in the author discussion in the back. And you're right. Sometimes, like, even it's a good reminder, even in going into the holidays, sometimes we just say yes to everything because we're in the moment. But just having that time to know that it's okay to take that space to think about it, and just if it's a project you can handle. But we're so glad this came together.
Yeah, absolutely. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. And I was actually really fascinated with the idea that, the 3 holidays all happening at the same time or around the same time. Like, how often does that happen? like once every, like you set this in 2000, right? And like how often does this sort of thing come about?
So it really did happen in 2000. I think, Uzma, you can speak to the way the Muslim calendar works and why this happens every 33-ish years.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that Muslims follow, obviously we follow the regular calendar, but we also have, like the Islamic calendar, similar to the way like there's, like the Chinese calendar or, other faiths and other cultural groups have that. So the Islamic calendar it's a lunar calendar. So what that means is that it's 10 to 11 days shorter than the regular Gregorian calendar. And so our months kind of travel through the year. So basically every 33 years, it makes a full rotation over our regular calendar. So sometimes we celebrate Ramadan, like last year it was in, the end of it was in May. This year it'll start in, 10 days behind. So it'll be like, we'll celebrate the end of Ramadan in the beginning of April. So every 33 years, it goes throughout the whole year. And in the year 2000, that was the last time that we celebrated Ramadan in the month of Ramadan in December. And it just happened to fall very close. The end of it happened to fall very close to Christmas time. It was a really magical time. I remember being a younger person and, as someone who doesn't really celebrate Christmas, I felt like I was like, for once, kind of included in the spirit of things because my holiday was also around the same time. And I know Hanukkah often, depending on the year, sometimes falls very close to Christmas as well.
Yeah, and so with this idea, like where we're celebrating Christmas, Ramadan, and Hanukkah, how did that come about that you both wanted to weave a story, a very magical story, I must say, in a beautiful setting? Like, how did this all come together that you wanted to, take these three holidays and combine them and then write a story about that? Did you have an idea as to what you wanted to say in writing this?
So I was raised in a multi-faith home I had a Jewish stepmother. My stepfather is a minister. And so we always celebrated both and various Jewish holidays. Okay. And so that was, I think, really when Uzma was talking about the confluence of these three holidays, it appealed to me because, as you know, I do write the holiday rom-coms. I love Christmas. I love it so much, but it is not the only holiday. And this just felt like such a great opportunity to bring in my past and my childhood, and then learn from Uzma about a holiday I didn't know much about. And that was such a great experience.
That's just so beautiful because, it makes me think of that. Like my parents immigrated here from India, and growing up, it was like they just took on Christmas. And because it was the thing to do to kind of normalize with the way everything was here. But now, like, even educating our children about this, like we put more emphasis into Diwali, whereas before we never did. And I'm like, why are we not celebrating that? That's like a significant thing for us. We should be sharing the sweets and gift giving at that time to create that magic. And so I think a book like this is such a great educational tool to really open up to people that this is just a season of so much festiveness and so many things to understand and take in. So I think that's absolutely beautiful that this book came together that way. Do you foresee more holiday rom-coms like on television kind of incorporating more of these stories? Because I know at first you wanted this to be a screenplay. Like, is there a hope for you that these kind of books kind of make that happen on screen?
Yeah, I'm always interested in seeing more representation, seeing different types of stories on the screen, on the page. Those are the types of books that I write. And initially, as you said, this idea was for a screenplay. And then Marissa and I we're novelists. So, of course, the natural medium is to write a book. We're always hopeful that someone will think, oh, this would make a really great movie and perhaps want to adapt it for the big screen. But yeah, I think it's so important, especially in a country as diverse as Canada, to have not just the same. And also, it's just, having diversity in the types of stories that are there. So many people who have read my book who only celebrate Christmas, who have read our book and only celebrate Christmas, have said to me, like, this is a really different take on the kind of stories that they usually see. And it's refreshing and fun.
I found myself, because my family, we celebrate Christmas, and I do not know a lot about the other traditions. And of course, like you said, like there's other things that are happening. It's not just Christmas, right? And so I found for myself, I just really loved reading how you weaved all of the traditions and all the celebrations within this story. And I just, I loved hearing about Anna and sort of her conflicts with feeling like she's an orphan, almost in the pain of losing her dad. And of course, like she didn't know who she was, right? Like we did this, sort of like what you were saying, Marissa, we kind of a multi-faith, but she was sort of really grasping. And then Maryam, I was reading how you described, of course, there's the whole marriage going on with her sister, but it's just like everything just seemed like so colorful in my mind as I'm reading about their celebrations, and they're talking about all the different things that they do as Muslims and how they celebrate at that time as well and what it means to them. And I thought that as someone who didn't really know, I learned a lot, and it was all presented in a very easy way to digest. And I actually, when I ended the book, I'm like, I need to learn more, I want to learn more about all of this, because it just gave me like a warm, happy feeling in my stomach. So I just think that it's such a great thing to read about these traditions and make them part of our lives. Like, power is in knowledge, right? And I just think the more we know, the better human beings we can be. For sure.
Well, I think that you encapsulated exactly what we wanted people to feel and take away. And I've talked in interviews about my experience, and I learned so much from Uzma, but probably most in one day in Ramadan last year. She invited me to try fasting for a day to put myself in the shoes of the characters who were fasting. And I acted like a total non-Muslim about it. And I was like, what do you mean? I can't even have water? Like, which is apparently what everyone says when they first time. I did, by the way, have water because I'm very weak, but from dawn until sunset. And Uzma had described the act of fasting, and I think we have that in the book as an act of radical compassion. And I understood that by the end of that day, I was hungry. I was setting the table for a meal that my family would share with me, and I was feeling pangs of hunger, and it made me realize what that feels like. Put myself in the shoes of someone who was feeling hungry and maybe not as certain of having a meal as I was, and it changed the way I approached charitable giving, for example. And it's certainly meaningful now when I hear that the food bank is in need. Like I am in a position to give, so I do, and that is part of what it is, right? And people don't know that from the outside. So we really wanted to teach that, because Christmas, of course, is about giving and generosity.
And same with Ramadan. There's so many campaigns that happen over the course of the month, and it was really hilarious to watch Marissa fast. I was fasting as well, and the stream of messages, I think we said could turn it into a comedy routine about like, wait, what's happening? Why am I feeling like this? The amount of food that I think you ordered a whole bunch of Hakka food that night, and it kind of made its way into our book as well, with everything that happened in our novel. But no, Tanya, you really encapsulated what our motivation was just, I mean, it's not, our book is ultimately an entertaining, joyful, fun read. But for me, I always find it fascinating learning about different cultures and different faiths, especially when you're learning about something as fun and festive as different holidays.
And Snow Falls, what a magical place. If only every pocket of the world could be like that, where they're accepting and want to learn and understand that. So how did the idea of this town come to be?
So we were initially inspired by El Monte, which is outside of Ottawa, which I read about in the New York Times. And I think the headline was like, your favorite holiday movie was probably shot in this Ontario town. And I was like, what? And then I clicked on it, and it's just this little Christmas town. And so that's where that first part of it came from. But then we've also talked about this a lot. We kind of created a town that we really wish existed in a world that we really want to live in, sort of inspired by the GTA and towns outside of Toronto.
Sorry.
That's okay. I think my son is doing something with dishes upstairs now too. Anyway, so we created this world we want to live in, and it's that Snow Falls. Like I would live there in a heartbeat.
Totally want to go there.
I know, right? So magical. And when it came to the characters, was there a favorite for you, or a favorite couple in all of this that you kind of connected with a little bit more? I know you both wrote separate parts of the book and kind of, would have discussions about how it would all work.
I think one of the favorite characters for both of us became Dadu, which is Mariam's grandfather.
Mine too.
And yeah, he's this adorable. Everyone loves him. He's this adorable man who is irrepressibly happy. He suffered the loss of his wife, Mariam's grandmother, a few years ago, and he accompanies Mariam and her family on the way to the wedding, which is in the title, 3 Holidays and a Wedding. But he is a retired Bollywood director, and he is just in love with love, and he's like kind of modeled off my father a little bit. He loves to give advice. He's very much like the jolly patriarch of this like very close-knit family. And then the other thing that we've mentioned before is, as much as this book is about, of course, it's a romantic comedy, we have all different types of love, including romantic love. My favorite story, though, is the friendship that develops between Maryam and Anna. They start off not really liking each other, and then they form a very fast friendship, which is beautiful to watch.
Those are my favorites too.
I think one of the things that I really connected with is, this idea of what family is, and I've always heard the quote saying, friends are the family that you decide to make together. And one of the quotes was, sometimes home is where your friends are. And that seems like it's a really big theme of the book, in that, Anna and Maryam, they didn't get along, from the very beginning. And then they had this close friendship. And I just really loved how you brought them together, and you kind of got that warm, fuzzy feeling of like, friends are the family that you pick. And sometimes those bonds are even stronger because you pick them, and because it's just not something that's just there. It's like, I really like you. And I want you to be a part of my family. And I loved reading about how that friendship developed.
The other thing we talked about was the quote in the beginning of the book. Why did you lead with that quote?
Oh, that was all Marissa.
Yeah?
Story, yeah.
I think, I came across it one day, or I was familiar with it, and I almost just put it there as a placeholder, just because it felt like it was just such an important theme. And it's, the light looks a little different on that wall and a little different on the other one, and different on that one, but it's all light, which is a Rumi quote. And it has been my experience, having been raised in a multi-faith home, and every time I learn about another religion, I get that feeling like we're talking about the same light. We're all different, but religions and faiths and community is really all about these tenets that we all hold true. And it just felt so important to have that at the beginning of the novel. And it feels very important now to consider that.
If you think about the role of light in all 3 of the monotheistic faiths, right? Christmas is characterized by light in the darkness, right? It happens in the darkest part of the year. And Hanukkah, right now we're celebrating, right? It's the lighting of the menorah. And in Islam, light plays a really huge part as well. There's a lot of reference to light in our holy books, and just the idea of light. And also, a lot of people put up lights during Ramadan as well to kind of celebrate the season. So I think it was a beautiful quote. When Marissa put it into our shared document, I was like, this is perfect. And it quotes Jalaluddin Rumi, who is a very famous Muslim Persian poet. No relation, but...
No, it was amazing. We thoroughly enjoyed the book. So can you both let us know what's kind of next for you? I know we ask Marissa this every year, because then we put on our radar what we're reading next. But what are you both working on, or some future plans you can fill our readers in on?
I'm diving into a new genre for me. I'm writing a cozy adjacent mystery novel. I'm kind of describing it as like the South Asian Miss Marple set in Scarborough, in a small neighborhood in Toronto. So I'm very early in that process. So you can look for it in a couple of years. It'll take that long to get out into the world.
And I'm so excited about it. And I will say, we talk often about what our next project together will be. We don't know much about it, except we know Dadu will be making cameo appearances. 2 novels coming out next fall. I have a holiday rom-com under a new pseudonym, Julia McKay. It's called The Holiday Honeymoon Switch, and it's so fun. It takes place in Hawaii and a cozy little cabin in the Hudson Valley, and it's about 2 best friends who switch holiday trips when one of them gets left at the altar, and both find love that they didn't expect. It's and really cute. And then I have a book called The Lightning Bottles under Marissa Stapley, under my name, which is a 90s, more like book club fiction, like upmarket 90s, set in the 90s alternative music scene. And it's about a famous couple, sort of Kurt and Courtney meets like the White Stripes. And the husband goes missing at the height of their fame. And it's about his wife going on a search for clues about where he is. He's leaving street art clues like Banksy across Europe, and it's a real love story and a mystery, and set in the 90s. And I'm a 90s kid, so.
Oh, exciting. I know. I love the Ian Ziering reference as to who would play Nick in the movie. And I was like, oh, I can definitely see that as how he is. But yeah, amazing. Tanya, any last thoughts?
No, I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think I'm actually going to give it to my sister to read over the holidays, because it's just like it's light reading, but it just really does touch you. And I so want to go to Snow Falls. Like, it's like the ultimate snow day. I mean, here in Edmonton, where I am, we do get some snow days, although we have no snow. This is just, it's like +8 today. It is just so weird heading into Christmas. But I just remember as a kid, those those snow days. And there's one image, there's a few images that stand out for me in the book, but one of them is like Anna standing in her Manolo Blahniks, like catching snowflakes on her tongue. I'm sorry. And then, Josh picks her up like a fireman and takes her to the hotel. There's like something I'm like, oh my God, I wish that would happen to me. But first I need those shoes.
You need the shoes and you need the snowfall in Edmonton shoes. And maybe it'll happen.
I need the Josh. Where do I find that? Anyway, absolutely delightful. Thank you so much for writing this book. And I hope it does very, very well for both of you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you both again for chatting with us. And we look forward to your next reads and to hopefully speak to you again.
Definitely. Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye, Marissa. Bye, Uzma. Thank you.
Have a great day, guys. Bye.
Thank you for kicking back and relaxing with us. We hope you'll join us again on Relaxing Reads.